welcome to the 7th episode of Recluse Horror. With me again today is Sam.
Hey.
He's been on 6 of the 7 episodes. So just a little background. On my birthday in April of last year, I decided I wanted to watch and review a horror movie every single day. I have done so. This is actually the 274th review I've done. Although only 7 of these so far have been podcast reviews. Before that, they were just text reviews. So today we watched Reek from 2015. This one is on Netflix. I had been avoiding it for a while just because I like zombie movies. The real problem for me personally is that after a certain point, I felt like they started to lack a certain sense of flavor. They were all very similar to one another. They didn't have a whole lot of different notes. And so in more recent years, I've been a lot more selective about the zombie movies that I do watch. Sam, what did you think about this movie?
Before watching it, or?
Yeah, before watching it.
Yeah, I wasn't avoiding watching it, but it looks kind of like a very actiony.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it kind of has like a weird like look to it.
Yeah.
Even before watching it.
Yeah. How did you like the movie after having seen it?
It was pretty actiony, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was going to be more like what is those new Death Race-ish movies?
Yeah, just
type
like
of style.
Like action gore or like...
Yeah, and it wasn't not that, but
Mm-hmm.
it just had a different feel than those movies.
Yeah. I felt like that did too.
But I don't know. I have a lot of problems with it. I don't know. Do you want to get into yours first, actually?
Sure.
Because mine's probably going to be like more negative.
Okay. I actually liked this one a lot better than I thought I was going to. You know, I generally I do not read anything online. I do not look at trailers or anything when I'm selecting a movie. I try to go into it as fresh as I can. You know, obviously with older movies or with classic, horror movies, that's a little bit harder to do. But so I had read maybe 4 or 5 words of the, maybe a whole sentence, I don't know, of the Netflix synopsis. And the Netflix synopses they're very interesting. If you've ever read them and you've seen the movie that they're describing, oftentimes you'll find like, well, that's a weird way of describing it, right? Do you?
Oh, totally. Sometimes they just...
Or sometimes they're just bad. Like, they're
Yeah.
supposed to be cheesy. I mean, and I get it because it's horror. But even on stuff that isn't horror, like, you'll find the same problem. But they're
just kind of weird. They're just kind of off
Mm-hmm.
in general.
They have a certain flavor, so I do kind of like it from that perspective. Like, Netflix has their own way of synopsizing things that like is a style choice, I think, a little bit, which is kind of neat. But it doesn't. Sometimes it makes me avoid movies that I really, really liked. While I wouldn't say that I really, really liked this one, I would say that there were enough differences on the standard zombie formula that I found it very interesting. And for the most part, I thought the pacing was pretty good up until the last bit, like, you know, maybe half hour or something.
Yeah, probably.
What did you feel about the pacing?
Yeah, it was really good up until the end. You just felt like you were in the last act for so long, and the last act is really repetitive, and even more so when you just watch the first one.
Yeah.
They do that like RoboCop thing where you have like commercials and stuff like that in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is a really good framing device, and they did it really well. But I feel like it like faded out towards the end, which made it feel even longer and longer.
So before we get too far into this, the premise of Reek is that it's set a few years, I believe it's 5 years into a zombie apocalypse sort of scenario, and they feel, the people, the survivors feel that they have sort of overcome it. But there's this division called, it's the R division. They go into these differing areas that still have like living zombies, or I guess undead zombies, but not dead ones, and not fully dead ones, and try to clear them out and so forth. They talk about it as though it's separate from the
police force or army.
Well, definitely the army. I was wondering if that's like supposed to be sort of a new police force, because they
don't really talk about the police force,
mm-hmm.
and they briefly talk about the army, but not in any sort of connections, I guess.
No, the only definite thing I would say is that it is definitely separate from the army, because they don't know what's...
Yeah.
They in the story, they mention that they don't know what the army is up to. Like certain people, like they're not sharing intelligence with the army. It becomes clear through part of it. So yes, as Sam said, they use commercials to sort of cut through. Basically, the Recluse is the name of a television show that is sort of like an R division zombie killing cops sort of deal.
Yeah.
A little bit mixed with like a genuine like war documentary, I guess. They have embedded like field correspondents and so forth with the R Division different teams. But these commercials that they have that cut through, they really build a really good sense of like where the world is at that point, and that was one of my favorite parts. Was that each of the differing types of commercials gave you a different sense of like what it really is living this far into a zombie apocalypse, that like it's at bay, but it's definitely not over. There's still active zombies out there. You said that it reminded you of RoboCop.
Yeah.
I haven't seen RoboCop, but I immediately thought of Starship Troopers.
Yeah. Well, the director of RoboCop directed Starship Troopers.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure it's the director, and not the writer. Something like that.
One of the two people involved.
Things.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that we both came away with that same sort of whatever.
Well, it's a good framing device, and they use it well.
They do.
I think it's underutilized in movies, especially movies that you need to build the world and fasten the pace.
Yeah.
This one did both well until it stopped doing it.
Yeah,
and then
it
started. You
really
started caring
felt it
less. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually really love the commercial framing device when they do that, framing stuff with commercials for whatever reason. Or just advertisements in general, like in Blade Runner 2049?
Yeah, 49.
I believe there will be no spoilers for that movie other than that they use advertisements in it, which they did in the first one, so don't get worried about that. But yeah, no, I love that advertising. It really gives you a sense of the world to see what is being advertised and in what capacity. Yeah, exactly. In what capacity. It's a really interesting thing. So if you don't particularly like that, this probably won't. If you actively dislike it, you probably will actively dislike the commercials. But if you don't, then you may find it interesting.
Well, they do it a lot in this movie until they don't do it at all.
Right.
Which is weird.
Yeah. Well, there's sort of a reason for that, but that's a spoiler, so.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found really interesting is this show, Recluse, the show in the movie, is graphically violent. Obviously there's full-on uncensored zombies and people dying and like zombies dying, and they're totally fine with that, but they censor nudity and curse words. Did you think that was funny?
Yeah, I thought that was good. I think all the stuff with that, it being a show, it being a show within the movie was one of my favorite things. And the way they did it was good, and adding the commercials, adding the setting of it being a show, and you're watching a show and it's addressed as a show.
Yeah.
And even within the show in the movie, when they're talking and they're interviewing and stuff like that, it helps progress the story and makes the gives you something different and
Right.
helps the runtime and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I found more interesting about that, specifically the censorship, or the lack of censorship on the part of the graphic violence. I mean, as graphic as it would get, was that they went so far as to even air the death of one of their own field correspondents on the show, which is just something that is so incredibly. It's definitely not something that they would do lightly and for no reason. And it felt like, this is just another run-of-the-mill botched operation. It didn't feel like any special circumstance when this happened. So, I mean, the level of violence that this society, this world has had to endure, and what that's done to, just shifting the scales in the direction of like, well, yeah, we see this stuff every day. It's not anything really,
Yeah, and just like, accepting
just
that you're
accepting.
gonna die. Yeah. They kind of do that with the commercials.
Yeah, they
too.
do. Yeah, they do. There's a number of ways in which they do that. That are, it's probably best left to people watching it. There was one specific one that I did want to discuss. But I think I'm gonna just leave it clandestine and let people watch it. They're really interesting, and those being some of the best parts, it's probably better to leave it. There is a level of propaganda to this show. Did you agree with that at all?
It depends how you mean.
Well, the one specific part, they're talking about how they basically survived the zombie apocalypse, and some of the things that they did are things that if our society had to go through them, they would be just incredibly hard to do. But there would be people who say, no matter what, you can't do those things, and others.
Right.
This show, in certain cases, there was a specific moment where they said, they heroically sealed off a city.
Yeah.
And that you didn't need to add the heroically if you're supposed to be journalists in any capacity. But that's one of the things that's interesting about this show, is it's clearly entertainment and not journalism.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, that they did add a level of propaganda. It wasn't over the top in the way that the Starship Troopers, stuff was. I didn't feel like. But even what should be, it's not an advertisement for this division. It's supposed to be, there's supposed to be some layer of separatism there. But it, it's not really terribly separate, So, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting. So on a more technical level, what did you feel about the effects overall?
The ones you could see were good. My biggest problem with the movie is that it's mostly interview perspective on who's talking, and then it goes into shaky cam during the action.
Oh boy!
And that was just by the end. It was so many scenes of that cutting to people shooting and just incredible, like a ton of shaky cam.
Right.
So like the effects you could see were fine and good and understated and modest and fitting.
Yeah.
But you had to like strain your eyes and brain to even see it at all.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard to focus. Now, I understand the impulse of trying to make this realistic by using the shaky cam. In the situation where they're embedded journalists, they're running with these teams and so forth. There's no way you're not going to have shaky camera work. But there has to be an upper limit to how shaky you will allow the camera to be. I would definitely say if you're feeling nauseous or ill or something like that, maybe skip this one. If you start to feel sick, just know it's only going to get worse. The shaky cam is only going to get worse. So maybe pause it.
It gets worse and worse too.
Yeah, maybe pause it. I don't think it was the level of like, I know a lot of people had an issue with, oh God, what was that movie? The Cloverfield. I know there was literally like, I think warnings about like, this is really shaky if you feel nauseous, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you get motion sickness, here's your warning. I don't know that this is quite that bad. I think I did feel a little more nauseous watching Cloverfield. I do get motion sickness. But I started to feel a little like I was about to get not sick, but about to get nauseous, but I never really got there. So, and my motion sickness is fairly strong. So you'll probably be fine, but if you're feeling sick, you might as well watch something else. There's plenty of movies out there.
Well, I don't get motion sickness at all. It just got to the point where, like, it kind of hurt my head.
Yeah,
because
your
my
eyes
kept trying to adjust, and
yeah.
there's just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I felt myself kind of blanking out on those spots.
Yeah.
Because so it would, like, wouldn't give me a headache.
Right. Yeah. So you wanted to talk about the way that the squad functioned, is that right?
Yeah. Well, the movie is mostly them going to somewhere, them finding zombies,
mm-hmm.
them standing there shooting at them for minutes at a time.
Right.
This happens 5 or 6 times, maybe more.
Maybe more.
Just at a wall of zombies, which is a cool idea and a cool visual if you could see it through the shaking cam.
Yeah.
But they're supposed to be like a trained squad of people doing stuff, and they in no way have any sort of squad
combat.
Yeah, any sort of squad combat training, squad dynamics. Mm-hmm. It seems like as soon as zombies come, they just sit there and shoot. And I guess it's a movie, so
right.
I guess that's what people do, but it's actually not.
Maybe if they had
how you would handle those situations.
No, you have to think tactically. You need a way out,
especially when the numbers are like 5 on 50.
And you can't kill them with like anything but a shot to the head, and sometimes not even then. So, yeah, I wonder if it would have... The movie definitely got to the point where the action started to feel a little repetitive. That being said, I'm not, like, a super big fan of action anyway. I don't really dislike it, but I definitely get fatigued. Like, those are the areas in movies, the action scenes are where I zone out. And I know that's where a lot of people, really start focusing in and being like, oh, man, explosions and violence and stuff. But that's when I find myself daydreaming. And there is a lot of that in here, and a lot of them feel very similar. So I wonder if using more squad tactics or being more
goal oriented,
would have maybe helped that feel these different situations feel different, rather than they arrive, they find zombies, they shoot them. They arrive, they find zombies, they shoot them. That said, each of the different like missions that you see them go on are slightly different, and they do make a point of distinguishing them in some way from each other. Even the ones that are sort of similar, they do start differently. So you can tell that they tried. I think the biggest problem is that the largest portion of the movie is that action that is the same, that is just shooting at zombies, running, shooting at zombies. But I mean, that's kind of the whole reason why I stopped watching zombie movies, and I think that's kind of the whole thing people like about zombie movies for whatever reason. Maybe I'm in the minority here. But I don't know, there was a squad, like there was some camaraderie. I felt like they not to the level of like Starship Troopers, but but there was some, you could tell like they had friendships and everybody worked together well. Even the people who sort of like would have had personality conflicts, they stowed it during when they were out in the shit, which I thought was good. But yeah, I don't know. The biggest problem I think was that end section, that last 30 minutes or so, that just, I mean, it's one long fight scene. It's long zombie firefight, essentially.
It dragged on forever for me.
There wasn't a whole lot of dialogue throughout it. There was dialogue, but there wasn't enough of it to really... There weren't enough breaks in it, and that's where the commercials would have come in. If they had cut commercials into that end part a little better, then that would have helped. There weren't a whole lot of like, okay, let's regroup. Like, everybody load your weapons. How much ammunition do we have? Like, even that would have, I think, helped. And they didn't really have...
There's a few throwaway lines here and there, but...
Yeah.
If anything, that makes you realize how little they do stuff like that. Because you just feel like they're just shooting forever.
Yeah.
And you're like, they would be completely out of ammo.
Yeah.
And totally, like, fucked.
Oh, they would be so out of ammo. They're not carrying extra ammunition. Like, they don't have... Yeah. Unless the people behind the cameras, the people who are literally operating the cameras have ammunition bags, they would be out of ammunition way, 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 way back into that. And they really, for that mission, would have brought more.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think that was just a plot convenience thing. I think, though, some of the reason why I think they might have been trying to make some kind of a comment on the violence, like the violence of the society there. Because, I mean, they only solve problems by shooting at it, even when they're presented with, like, other ways that you might consider. They pretty much just shoot at it. Again, Starship Troopers. There's a lot of parallels here that I'm seeing. But, I could be totally making that up. And it's definitely not a strong theme if it is a theme. I mean, the violence as a theme, yes. But, like, the inability to solve problems any other way is probably a more minor theme if it is, like, an intended
if it's just
theme.
not an oversight of not really knowing what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because you could tell they wanted to make some action scenes.
Yeah.
But maybe they didn't know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they just shot, and then they didn't really...
Yeah.
Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It looks good, though.
It does, yeah.
But that's what it feels like, is they're like, oh, run around, we'll shoot, them shooting.
Well, and I know you found the end part a little monochromatic.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. The end part is in, like, a specific contained location, and everything is sort of lit the same. And it's lit sort of darkly, so it's not even like the features in each differing area of this place can really set anything apart. So it does start to feel very much the same, the lighting in it. Did you want to talk about any of the actors or anything, or?
Yeah. And all the performances were good to passable. Like,
yeah, there were a couple of people that I was, like, less impressed with. But for the most part, I thought they were pretty good, and definitely the people who were the leads were the best ones. Like, they, there were a couple of faces that I thought I recognized as well. One I know specifically that I did, but why don't you go ahead and talk about the different actors?
Matthews, the female squad member, she was in The Collector.
Oh, really?
As Lisa, which I don't remember who that is in The Collector.
Uh-huh.
But if you haven't seen The Collector, it's like the horror movie version of Home Alone.
It is.
So it's a recommend from me. And that's all. That's the only thing I had to say about the cast.
Right.
They're not like well-known people, really.
So the person that I definitely recognized from this was Jesse Garcia. The actor's name is Jesse Garcia. He played Hernandez. He was another squad member. There's not really much to distinguish them other than squad member. But he was Freddy Gonzalez, the police officer from Dusk Till Dawn, the series, which if you haven't seen that series, it's actually pretty interesting. Like, I think it would appeal to people who aren't generally into the whole vampire aesthetic. It has a very different feel. And obviously actual vampire fans, would be into it, I thought. He was also in the Avengers, but I think he was kind of a small part in that. I can't remember for sure. So the person who's probably as close to the lead as you'll get, he's the sergeant, they just call him Sarge, has been in a ton of stuff that I have seen. He was in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency playing Eddie Black. He was in Dark Matter, which I watched like half the first season of. I didn't like it, but he played Six in that. He was in War for the Planet of the Apes, but it seems like a small role. He was in The 100, playing Commander Cole McAdams. It was just one episode. He was in Continuum, playing Travis Verta, which I've seen. He was in The Strain, playing Reggie Fitzwilliam. He's been in so much stuff. He's in a ton of television shows. Oh, he was in an episode of Orphan Black. All of this stuff I have seen at least some of. So I recognized him, and I knew that I had seen him from something. I did not realize it was like everything I've ever watched on TV in the last 2 years. He also did voices for Fallout New Vegas. He did a bunch of them. I don't recognize any of them offhand. He was in Fringe for 2 episodes playing Smith. just a ton of stuff. So if you've watched anything sci-fi-ish in the last few years, you've probably seen him.
I think they're all small roles, though.
Some of them weren't. Some of them were bigger roles. He was also in The Day the Earth Stood Still, the remake from 2008. So yeah, he's in and he's in 24. He's apparently he was in a lot of 24. I didn't watch any of that. He was in the 4400 for one episode. He was Toal in the Chronicles of Riddick, which was the first thing that I was like, oh, I definitely saw him in that. I remember him. But yeah, he's in a ton of stuff. If you've seen anything sci-fi in the last few years, you've probably seen him in some capacity. He was in iZombie for an episode. Yeah. So Roger Cross, he did a very good job. I thought he was probably one of the better actors in it, other than Jesse Garcia playing Hernandez. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I think we spent enough time on.
No, not really. It was okay. The format just wears on you, so.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. Like I said, I am a person I was really into zombie movies when they first started to make their sort of resurgence, I felt like. And then it started to be very clear everything is going to be, they only hit a few different notes. If you are just as disillusioned with the genre as I am, I think this is something that'll feel different enough that it might grab your attention a little bit. What about you?
It's hard to say. Like, I could see recommending the beginning to people,
right?
But I couldn't really see recommending the rest of it. I just feel like as a whole, it just doesn't work. So it's kind of a weird one for me because I enjoyed watching it enough. Like, I didn't hate watching it. But at the same time, like, watching the whole thing and, realizing how it plays out is just kind of like...
Does it feel like a waste because the ending wasn't really...
It just kind of feels like a letdown.
Yeah, okay.
It feels a little bit like a letdown.
Like it built something that it didn't lead up to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So if you are interested in zombies, if you got sick of zombies because they weren't doing anything different, I do have a recommendation for you. It is one of my favorite things that I have ever just happened to stumble upon. It's a TV show out of Britain called In the Flesh. It also takes place post zombie apocalypse, but it takes a little bit of a different tack than this one does. They don't solve everything with violence. That's as much as I'll say about it. But it is one of the most unique approaches to zombie outbreak, recovery, I guess, that I have ever seen. It's a little on the slow side at times. I really enjoy the pace. But it has some really interesting things, and it's stuff that I have thought about and have never seen done before. So, yeah, that is on Hulu. It probably will be for a long time. It has been for probably a year or two now. But please give it a watch, try an episode. You'll see why it's different. So, yeah, if you like zombies, if you think you don't like zombies and want a reason to like zombies, go ahead and watch In the Flesh. That is, I think it's possibly the best thing I've ever just decided to watch an episode of, because I was like, oh, that sounds all right. But this movie, Recluse, not bad. It definitely ends a little, the ending is a bit of a disappointment, but it's not the hugest disappointment I've gotten through all of the horror movies that I've watched. I would watch, this might be an indicator, I would watch a sequel if they had a sequel. I like the world building. The world building is definitely its strongest feature, and that's something I enjoy in any movie. So I do have a little bit of a slant there. But yeah, it's interesting. Did you have anything else?
No, it's...
Okay, well, that was Recluse. Okay, so every episode that I do, up until yesterday, I have, in addition to the movie that I watched that very night, I have gone over the one of the text reviews basically that I did before, and just talked about any recollections I have left of these movies, aided by, the review itself, to try to jog my memory. I had been doing 2 of them. I think if the episode is starting to feel a little bit long, I'm probably going to start switching to just doing 1. And being that the first half of this was a half an hour, I think I'm only going to do 1 today. Now, Sam, you have seen this movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's Yoga Hosers from 2016. What are your feelings on Yoga Hosers?
It's pretty not good.
Okay.
Like, is that...
So, just a heads up, this movie absolutely can be spoiled for you, from everything from synopses to
the trailer.
trailers. Oh my god, the trailers are the worst.
The trailers spoils it super hard.
Posters. If you are interested in seeing Yoga Hosers, it is on Netflix. Just go and look at it, or just go and watch it. Don't look at anything else. I'm not going to spoil the reveal for you here. It's unnecessary to talk about this movie by spoiling it. So Yoga Hosers is a movie. It's directed by Kevin Smith, and it stars his daughter and Johnny Depp's daughter, who honestly both gave pretty good performances, despite obviously getting, the jobs because of nepotism. It's the second movie in the True North trilogy. The first movie was Tusk, which I really liked, and the second was, this was the second. The last movie is Moose Jaws, which hasn't come out yet. I don't really know how to summarize the premise, other than to say it's about 2 high school girls that work in a convenience store, and they play in a band, and they do yoga. One night, when they weren't even supposed to be there that day, they get attacked by spoilers.
By spoilers, yeah, that is what happens.
Yeah, that's really the big reveal, is what they get attacked by. And don't worry, you won't see it here. Probably most of you have seen
probably
it,
already spoiled on it.
But under the one person out there who somehow isn't spoiled, who missed that this movie even came out, I don't want to ruin it for you, because I have been there, and it really is a big spoiler. So, what were your overall criticisms? I'm not going to even say feelings, because I know they're criticisms. I know you didn't particularly enjoy this movie.
No, I didn't. I actually like it more than I like Tusk.
Yeah, which is crazy to me.
Because Tusk is like a horror comedy.
Well,
it's not very funny.
See, I didn't feel it was really a horror comedy.
Rewatch it.
It definitely has its moments, believe me.
The only parts of Tusk that's good is the funny parts.
Yeah, well, they play it very straight, but in this particular case, I like.
And maybe it's more of a black comedy.
It's a
horror black comedy, but I still don't feel like they really did much with it. This one I liked a little bit better because it was more of a comedy. Horror.
It's
so
definitely.
It had a nicer theme and feel.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of knew what it was a little bit more, which I enjoyed and made it easy to watch. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't like the movie because it's not particularly funny.
Yeah.
In most of it, and it's not particularly good. In most of the story and design aspects.
And the effects even.
Oh yeah, the effects are really bad. And they're not bad enough that they're funny, but it's easier to forgive because it's a funnier movie.
Yeah,
trying to be
true.
A funnier movie.
But the effects were better in Tusk.
No, the effects were better in Tusk. There was just less of them.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest criticisms is that some of that stuff would have been really funny with not even necessarily better effects, but doing the effects in a funnier way.
Yeah.
To have it actually be funny, opposed to there's a lot of green screen CGI stuff, and it doesn't look funny as much as it looks cheap.
Right. But not cheap in the funny way.
No, not at all. Yeah. Like, in the lazy way.
In the lazy way, yeah. They really needed to make it worse. They needed worse effects or better effects, and the better effects would have been really hard to pull. I mean, there's no way to make the spoilers look better, really. I don't feel like.
I feel like there is, but it would have been work, and no one was trying to do that on this movie.
No.
No one was trying to work on this movie.
So,
but no, I like the Kevin Smithy stuff.
Right.
Just the bullshit involved, just the regular everyday stuff. It's really what he should continue doing, but he won't for some reason. and the two main characters were pretty good. Like, they didn't bug me at all.
No,
in their acting, at least.
When I went into the movie, that was what I thought was going to be the big thing, is that they were going to be bad, and they're both really good. They do a really good job. I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure that they probably could have gotten better leads, but honestly, like, they were some of the best parts of it. They were silly, and
it seems like they were taking it serious in an acting
they were
way.
They weren't just messing around. They were really there to work.
Yeah, it feels like they weren't, taking it semi-serious, so that even, like, you would see other actors, because there's a lot of bigger actors in the movie, and you can kind of see how they're not taking it serious.
Yeah.
And they're, like, doing a kind of a shitty job. Like, Johnny Depp's in it, and he's super shitty in it.
Yeah.
Haley Joel Osment's in it, and I can't remember, but I think he was...
I think he was good. He was silly, but he was good. I thought he was trying a bit, I think he was trying to be funny.
Yeah, so, I don't know.
I liked Haley Joel Osment.
I can't remember him too much. I was just saying there's bigger characters, and I feel like they were the two people in the movie taking it the most serious.
They were, and I think they did the best job, which was, like, really funny. I mean, there were some other actors that, like, Johnny Depp is a huge name, and, I'm stealing this from Community, but I do agree, he's the bad kind of a good actor, he's ridiculous, he's over the top, he is way over commercialized, he hasn't done more than 3 movies probably in the last 10 years that haven't been Tim Burton. There's a lot of problems there. He's a very good actor. He can do this stuff. He just, I don't know, it's kind of nuts or something. I don't know. But his role in Tusk, now he plays the same character that he played in Tusk, but it's overused in this, and it's also completely extraneous to the plot. Like, he's completely unnecessary to the movie. So I remember wanting more out of his character after watching Tusk, being like, not that I wanted more in that movie, just like, I want to see that character again. I thought that was an interesting character, and he did some interesting things in Tusk. In this movie, he does nothing that's worth talking about. His acting is worse.
They kind of just give him the same part, but in this movie.
Yeah.
Around the same amount of screen time. He has some good lines, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So after a second time, it's just like the same thing.
It's the same bit.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same bit in both.
Yeah.
In both movies, you don't learn too much about him.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just kind of it just feels like everybody else is messing around or like weird.
Yeah.
And the movie's already kind of bad.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't help things.
Right. Yeah. So I think the reason why I preferred Tusk to this movie, now, don't get me wrong, Tusk was entirely ridiculous. Something like what happened in that movie, I mean, definitely would never happen in real life. And even if it did in some form, there's no way it would play out the way it did, especially in the last moments. Mm-hmm. But it still had some grasp on reality. It had a toe on the other side, grounding it and rooting it in some sort of a realism. This movie completely abolishes that and just goes for the most outlandish, sort of perspective, which in a certain way, the absurdism is really funny. But it makes it so hard. They feel like they're still trying to, maintain some sense of like suspension of disbelief, but it's impossible in this movie. That's what I didn't like about this movie. I liked the Kevin Smith feel. I do usually like that, of this movie, but I didn't think it was enough to like just get over how ridiculous this movie is. Tusk, one of the reasons why I liked Tusk is because as a director for Kevin Smith, this showed it showed that he can make a movie that's not quote unquote his movie, even though this is his movie. It had a completely different feel from any of his movies. Even his serious movies don't feel like that movie. And it did feel like a genuine horror movie. To me, this felt like it felt like if you added a ton more violence and a ton more zaniness to like Dogma or something like that. It didn't feel like a horror movie, even though it clearly was, And Tusk felt like a horror movie. So maybe it's just because I like horror and this was sort of marketing itself in that way. and it didn't really achieve that. Maybe that's what I didn't like about it.
I probably feel the opposite.
Uh-huh.
But that's because I don't care if it's horror or not. Like,
Right.
I like horror movies, but
Right.
I also don't like horror movies. It just
Yeah.
depends on the movie. Tusk to me just felt like a horror movie that didn't want to be a complete horror movie. And the absurdity of yoga hosers made up for it being absurd. Where Tusk was like, seemed like it wanted to be really serious, but then they threw in a bunch of like dumb shit because they couldn't help themselves.
Okay.
So the feel of the two are different, and Tusk just made me too mad because of some of the stuff they did in it.
You're talking specifically like the very ending.
Yeah, like the very ending, and just like some of the things that happen in the movie. Where Yoga Hosers is just more stupid. So like, who cares? You know, like it. By the end, it's like a cartoon, Yoga Hosers.
Yeah.
And I
by the
like,
middle, it's a cartoon.
Yeah, and I guess I like cartoons. So that's like, I could see myself rewatching Yoga Hosers just in the background, just to kind of remember how the movie went. Tusk, I don't think I could rewatch it. Like, it's kind of an annoying movie. The only reason to watch it is to show somebody and be like, check out this dumb movie. And that's why I had watched it for a second time, because I did that to you.
Right, yeah, because you wanted to watch it with me, except for it backfired because I liked it.
Yeah, I forgot how dumb you were, sorry. I forgot how dumb you were for a second.
So, okay. And I promise we're eventually going to talk about just Yoga Hosers. I guess it doesn't matter. I can't review
Well,
Tusk.
it kind of has to be compared because they're connected. They're
series.
very connected.
Yeah, they're very connected.
So,
They're connected by characters and so forth. It's a different scenario, but... So, Tusk feels like the... It's hard to say this without spoilers, really. But I'm gonna do it without spoilers. Tusk builds in a very specific sort of horror that I find really interesting. It's sort of like it's stretching the ability of suspension of disbelief without actually breaking it. In my case, in most respects. Now, definitely there are a couple of places where you're like, especially the very end, where you're like, no, that is absolutely not what would happen. That is not how that could happen. Whatever. But for the most of the movie, like, you get this, like, okay, technically this could happen, even if it didn't happen this way. It reminds me in certain ways of, like, Excision, or,
do not.
No.
Do not.
I am not comparing the two. I'm just saying it has the same vibe where you're like, there's no way. Like, this sort of level of shock that's interesting, and I always find that a little bit appealing, even if it's usually done wrong. There's another movie that it's very much like that I'm not going to say because that's kind of a spoiler. But
yeah, I guess I was about to say it, but yeah, it is kind of a spoiler.
Isn't it? Yeah. Because, okay, I know you know which movie I'm talking about. But yeah, so it's that sort of feel, and I really appreciate that when it's done well. The other thing I really like, Justin Long, who plays the lead in Tusk, they make him the most awful human being. He is just completely unlikable, which is a role that he doesn't do very often. And I really liked that. It also works very well in the story. I think it makes the story more digestible. So it's really, I don't know, it's more, again, it's more of a horror movie for one thing, but also it shows that Kevin Smith can do something other than the thing he's done for his entire career thus far, and do it with some level of credibility. Yoga Hosers is just basically like another Silent Bob peripheral, what do they call it? The View Askew-verse or whatever. It's just another one of those movies. Whereas I feel like if you watched Tusk in a vacuum, you may not know it's a Kevin Smith movie. I think you probably wouldn't know it was a Kevin Smith movie, especially if they got rid of the Johnny Depp parts, because those are the parts that feel the most Kevin Smithy. And without that, I think it doesn't feel View Askew-y. What do you think?
Alright, so that was our review on Tusk.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, like, like you said, you were the one who gave me the permission, basically.
I didn't give you... What?
You gave me the permission.
Alright, well, I guess I have to talk about it now, because is a liar. First off, hates comedy. You probably can tell.
Probably true.
By listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Hey,
I like Community.
She's dangerously unfunny.
True.
Medically unfunny.
It's a condition.
And she hates it. So I could see her opinion on Tusk.
Why my Tusk would be that way.
I don't know what I was talking about anymore. Tusk. I guess I'm not going to talk about Tusk anymore. I didn't like it. Excision is amazing. Mm-hmm. So good. Watch it if you can. Yeah. So good. That other spoiler movie that you're talking about, bad. Same with Tusk.
Yeah. No.
Yoga Hosers is just like a stupid horror comedy. Maybe a little too stupid.
That was my problem.
If they would have reeled that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. But for me, because I have a sense of humor and like comedy.
Yeah.
I can watch it. I can rewatch it. I might rewatch it tonight if I'm not watching the hit comedy that nobody liked, Stuck on You.
Hey, I thought that was alright.
It's amazing.
They're stuck together.
I know, they're stuck together. It's amazing. So no, that's my review. I think both those movies are, if you're more into horror, you'll probably like that one better. If you're more into comedy, you'd like Yoga Hosers better. Both are really not very good movies. I wouldn't recommend to anybody to really watch them other out of like what the fuck was that movie?
Yeah.
Like if you're like, here, want to watch a stupid movie? It's really stupid. And you're like, yeah, what the fuck? Why did we watch it? I was like, I don't know, kind of to torture you a little bit. Like,
I don't like you and I want you to leave my house.
It makes me laugh to make you watch this movie with stupid ideas in it.
Is it sort of like when you serve coffee at a party? Like you're like, get the hell out of here.
No, it's just like, it's like when you give somebody a sour candy but don't tell them it's sour.
Okay, there were a couple more things I wanted to talk about that are actually Yoga Hosers related. Oh. So, the title, Yoga Hosers. What the fuck?
I don't speak Canadian, so I don't know.
Okay, so they never really go into specific detail about why it's called Yoga Hosers. Basically, Yoga Hosers refers to the two leads, the Harley Quinn Smith and Lily something Depp.
Yeah, something like that.
I apologize for not using their names because they are human beings and they did a good job.
Lily Rose.
Lily Rose. Okay, I thought it was Lily Rose, but then I thought I was just like combining flowers. I don't know.
I mean, that sounds like how they named her.
Lily Rose Depp. So the two leads, they call them Yoga Hosers because they do yoga and they're hosers. And they call them that.
Yeah, and they're hosers.
Yeah, and they're hosers, which I'm like still not 100% on that, like what that's supposed to mean. Like I know it's, like slightly insulting or.
Yeah, it's like they're dicks.
Yeah, but I don't think it's as strong as dick. Yeah. I think they like. So it's really irritating because they say it over.
Oh yeah,
and
over, like the phrase "yoga hosers."
Yeah, is a real thing.
It's like
they're trying to make it a thing.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it.
I remember that. That's actually really cringy.
Yeah, it is. And like I think what they were trying to do is that thing where like it's confusing in the beginning, but then it starts to become funny the more that it's used. That does not happen to me. It did not happen to me. They never specifically really go into it. Maybe because you're supposed to know what the fuck a hoser is, and I do not have that cultural connection to the word. So it really, for more than, if you're not Canadian or like Indian, what do they call people from Indiana? Indianian? Yeah. Then you're probably not going to have much connection to that phrase. So it's just kind of irritating. Like, and every time they use it, it made me like a little bit more angry, I think, by the end, at least. The other thing is the one problem that I really had with the lead characters, has nothing to do with their performances and has everything to do with the writing. They're the epitome of the vapid technology obsessed teenager, and the angle is played in every single movie that involves teenagers, and or millennials. I think these are teenagers. They're like in high school, right? 15, 16?
Yeah.
In there? Okay.
Something like that.
Or they're supposed to be. I think they're in their 20s in real life.
I don't think they're that old, actually.
Are they not? Okay.
I don't think so.
But it's such a tired trope, and I feel like somebody like Kevin Smith should know better. Like, maybe it's supposed to be one of those things where they're showing the perception of other people through their interpretations of the characters, like in an unreliable narrator sort of way. But it doesn't come across that way. It's just like, you can't, it's like you wrote a movie because you're criticizing your daughter about using her phone too much.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't, I didn't like that. I don't think it got as irritating as the yoga hosers thing or the whole idea of the plot.
Nothing could be as irritating as the yoga hoser thing.
But I think some people, if you're really tired of that, like, oh, those millennials on their cell phones and, these newfangled computers or whatever dumb bullshit.
Yeah, it felt a little bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as some things.
Yeah, not as much as some things. It's not the worst I've seen.
There's a few moments where it's just more factual.
Right.
Which I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
like that, because I'm into
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that when it's like
Mm-hmm.
encapsulated in a movie in a time frame, and you go back and watch it and you'll see that idea come up several times. So I actually like that part without the idea of it being like, oh, like making fun of like a certain grouping or age. And they were both born in 99.
99, which makes them
math.
So they would have been 17.
This was in 2016.
16. Yeah, and they would have been 19 now. So yeah, 17.
Yeah.
Oh, so they were teenagers. Yeah. Oh, good for them. I actually they just look older, but
I a little. I don't know, not too much. Not like some movies.
No. They don't look like they're in their 30s, but they did look like they were in their early 20s. So well, that's good. They used actual teenagers as teenagers. Well,
yeah, it's weird they were born the same
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it definitely has that the movie has that unique Kevin Smith feel, which you either like or don't. If you don't like it, you're gonna hate this movie. Like, it's gonna be the most obnoxious thing that you've ever seen.
Yeah, it feels more like a little bit more like his older stuff. So if you're really liking stuff like that, and that's probably what I get out of it. Yeah, because I like Clerks, I like Mallrats, I like that older Kevin Smith stuff. Yeah, and that's probably why I like it in any respect. Because you get a little bit of that in this movie. Yeah.
You know what I think the big difference is maybe between this and some of his other stuff? There's not really as much of that dumb pot humor. I hate pot humor. I think it's just ridiculous. I mean, it has no appeal to me. I'm not a pot smoker myself. And I find that humor usually pretty tiresome. And this doesn't really have any of that, as I recall. I mean, I think there might be a character who smokes in it, but it's not, they don't make it into this whole production, the whole, Kevin Smith, like, Jay thing, like his whole persona, his entire character. Yeah. Like, they don't really do that in this, I don't think. Which is kind of refreshing, actually. So obviously, as you might have guessed, the plot is Swiss cheese for plot holes. The movie is just, which you, honestly, it doesn't really matter as much in this movie. If you're trying to logic what this movie is, then you're just gonna hate this. You're gonna hate yourself. You're gonna hate your life while you're watching this movie. But the other really big thing that bugged me was the movie, of course, takes place in Canada, and for that reason, the characters use that stereotypical pronunciation of about. They say aboot and oot and stuff like that, rather than about and out. But the same characters will say about or aboot, depending on the scene. They're really bad about being consistent about that. Like, yes, some people would have a more Americanized version of it, and some people would have a more Canadianized sort of, version of it. First of all, that's not all of Canada that says it that way. Second of all, most of those Canadians don't say it anymore. They've actually had a shift in that vowel pronunciation. There's a really good article about it. They don't say it. But the same character will pronounce everything different ways. And that really irritated me. It
didn't bug me because it's like a live action cartoon. Right. So I got that they're like kind of characterizing. Well, but if they did it... And I'm not Canadian, and I don't care, I guess. But yeah, I guess it's kind of annoying if you think about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was fine.
I don't think I picked up on it until maybe the 25-minute mark or something like that. I'm just pulling a number out, but it did take me a little while. But I remember specifically like a character that they used a few times where I was like, I swear he said a boot the last time. And then when they brought him back, he said it again, and then he unsaid it. It's just like, just be consistent. Like, if you're gonna make, I understand the cartoonism of it, and honestly, that wouldn't have bugged me. The a boot thing wouldn't have bugged me because even though most of them don't even pronounce it that way anymore, I would have understood what they were doing. There's so much cartoony vibe in this movie. But because they were inconsistent with it, I felt like, no, this is a no. Like, you either do it or you don't. You piss or you get off the pot. Not every character has to do it, but the ones that do it have to do it every time.
Yeah, it didn't bug me.
It was really distracting to me. After I noticed it, everything else, every time anybody would say it one way or another, I would just make a mental note in my head, and it would just kind of like irk me every single time. There's a ton of stuff in this movie that they try, and like it doesn't really pan out.
There's a ton of that.
Like, I mean, I'm sure to a certain extent that happens in a lot of the Kevin Smith movies, but this is like the worst. This is like, they're batting 100.
Yeah,
here.
It's like they just think of an
or
idea
1,000,
and it's thrown in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't land or it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
It's real bad. It's real bad. But as I would say, maybe slightly over half of the stuff that they try lands. What did you think about the music?
I don't remember the music at all.
You don't?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I remember. I feel like you thought it was okay. We did watch this one together when we watched it. You had already seen this one?
Yeah, I rewatched it. That's how much I love Yoga Hosers.
Yeah. Okay. So, I thought the music was okay. It was better than I was kind of expecting. It was a little riot girly, but
oh yeah, okay, right.
Yeah,
some of that was okay.
Like, but like in a not
bad way,
overly obnoxious sort of riot girly way, and it really kind of did fit with the characters, where it just feels like they're just doing shit to kill time with their whole lives. Like that's what it feels like they're doing.
Yeah. I like all that stuff. That's the best stuff,
that.
I think.
Yeah.
Is the, like, everyday stuff. Around.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Kevin Smith's the best at that.
I would love to see those characters doing something else that wasn't, like,
it wasn't stupid.
That wasn't completely stupid like the plot of this movie. Yeah, I like I said, I really liked them. I thought they did a really good job. I have never seen them in anything else. I know that they have
a few things here and there, but I think they're pretty small parts.
Yeah. But yeah,
because they're the main characters. They're on the screen 90% of the time.
They are.
No exaggeration.
No. That's a pretty fair. I think that's a pretty fair number to put on it. But yeah, oh right, and there's another. God, I took so many notes on this. There's another character who teaches himself everything about the world. By watching literally everything on Netflix. He watched everything on Netflix. But for some reason, the only people he displays any knowledge of is 90s action heroes. Is that all they have on Netflix in Canada?
I don't know. I wish we had that.
Because if not, that's totally fucking stupid. Because that's fine if you want, say that a fucking truck full of shitty 90s, action movie DVDs ended up there. Or like, It's just stupid. Like that's another one of those things that they try and just like...
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And
no.
It's not even funny.
It's not even funny, yeah. Like the boot and about thing to me, not funny. Like, if you don't do it right, it's not funny. But go ahead, though.
No, that's all. I don't have anything else to say.
If you're looking for an absurdist horror comedy-ish sort of a deal, I would say try Tusk. It's crazy, but it's not completely out of touch with reality and the audience. If you like Kevin Smith movies, this is a definite this is a definite one that you should check out. I think it's worth the risk of not liking it to check it out if you like Kevin Smith. Pretty much anybody else, I kind of feel like you could probably skip it. If you like horror comedy, check it out. Is there anybody else that I missed that you think?
No, just like I said, like if you're into Kevin Smith's older stuff, you might enjoy some of it. Probably not even all of it because it's pretty stupid. I enjoyed the little bit, but I rewatch dumb stuff all the time just to have something on TV.
Right.
Even if I'm not really
just
watching
in the background.
it. Yeah. This is one of those things I would probably... I have done that already before. So...
Okay, well, here's the real test of whether we like either of the movies that we talked about, by which I mean Yoga Hosers and Tusk, which we didn't quite review Tusk, but would you want to watch Moose Jaws?
I have to see Moose Jaws. It's gotta be so stupid.
It's gotta be
the apex of stupidity.
Yeah.
Otherwise it fails.
If this is not more stupid than Yoga Hosers...
If the escalation of stupidity does not ramp up with Moose Jaws, then it's gonna be a complete failure. Imagine it's like a dismal, dark, real horror movie. How wouldn't that be so?
That would be. Yeah, that would be...
That's not the way to end a trilogy.
Work. Right.
You gotta throw some Ewoks in there. And really, really make it stupid.
Oh, I love it. I also want to see Moose Jaws. Unfortunately, I know the premise of Moose Jaws, and I'm way less excited about it. Here, I'll tell you what...
No, tell me.
No, okay, I won't tell you that. That's fine. I'm less excited about that than the plot of the first movie, at least. But it probably will be better than the second movie. But yeah, I do want to watch Moose Jaws. I've actually been looking forward to it for a while, and I feel like I haven't been hearing much news about it. I hope it still is. They're planning to make it, I hope. Yeah. So I think that's our show. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about anything?
I guess say no to drugs, right?
Definitely.
And I give Yoga Hosers 10 Yoga Hosers out of 1,000,000 Yoga Hosers.
Because they say it 1,000,000 times. Okay. Well, thank you for listening. You can find Recluse Horror on Instagram, Facebook, but cautionary tale about Instagram, I've posted literally nothing. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I think there's a few more. You can download this or recommend it to others through Stitcher or iTunes. Please, like or subscribe or whatever. And if you're listening, go ahead and send us any kind of messages through reclusehorror@gmail.com. Or you can comment on wherever you found the link to our show. I'd love to hear from you guys. Is there anything else that we should mention? Okay, 10 Yoga Hosers. Yoga Hosers gets 10 Yoga Hosers out of 1,000,000 Yoga Hosers. Well, enjoy your evening.